previously, but before we get to that, I would like to do an overview of what is tonalism. Thanks, Kate. Actually, a number of you kind of like when you put on your pictures, you're like, I don't know if this is tonalism. The first thing I'd like to say is I don't really care. I just want you guys painting, and we're using tonalism as a way to break down different concepts in painting and in landscape painting. And it's just kind of a way to present it. Deborah Paris, who's a nice, I think she's from Texas. And I think many people do consider her a tonalist painter. She has a very short 2-paragraph. Oh, actually, it's just 1 paragraph. Stapleton Kearns is another, he's an East Coast painter. I don't know a whole lot about him, but he writes really quickly, tonalism is a historical approach to painting that involves systematically presenting the landscape permeated by a dominant tone and in a restricted color scheme. Often, at least historically, these painters worked mostly in earth colors, so black would have been common color on their palette. Okay, so that's just kind of a historical brief introduction. And then Deborah Paris, in response to what Stapleton wrote, says, I find that if I pick a dominant hue and vary it by temperature, value, and intensity, so hue basically just means color. So I find that if I pick a dominant color and vary it by temperature, warm and cool, value, the light and dark, and intensity, just high chrome or high color versus lower color, I get the best result. I find that to be quite true for me as well. I'll oftentimes very much lean towards one of the value keys, like is it a lighter painting or a darker painting or right in the middle? And I will generally lean towards one of the colors more. And a lot of times for me, if we can think of the color wheel with all the really vibrant colors on the outside, and then they get duller and grayer as they come in because they're mixing across the color wheel. And I'll show this when we get to the easel. I will pick one of those colors. A lot of times I'll mix like a dominant, like a brown or a olivey green, and I call that the mother color. And then I will use that color to influence most all of the other colors.
So you mean you're not supposed to use all of the colors?
It makes it a lot trickier. Yeah, it makes it a lot trickier. And it's harder to get it to be, but you sure can. I mean, I have my generic palette that I always lay out of 2 reds, 2 yellows, 2 blues, and white. And I can still make very much tonalist paintings because I'll just mix up a brown or a dark or a light color that's going to kind of dominate. And a lot of times you see that when I do that first color of, that first glazing, that color will kind of influence lots of my other paintings. I don't worry about, is this tonalism very much? There's very few tonalist shows and very few tonalist magazines or anything like that where they're going to hold you to strict guidelines and strict rules. And then if you do go online and look up the definition for tonalism, all of them are different that I found. I posted a couple longer versions. Unfortunately, they're at the very bottom of our page, which I've been scrolling since we started class. And maybe now I just reached the bottom. Let's see.
I wanted to go back to what Deborah Paris said. She picks a dominant hue. She varies it by temperature, value, and what was the last one?
Intensity.
Intensity. Okay.
So if we think of the color orange is going to be our dominant hue. So I actually don't like the word hue just because it's confusing. I always think of learning painting like trying to learn another language where you're constantly having to translate certain words in your head. So you'll often hear when I'm saying the words like dominant hue, and then I'll pause and say color, or even values. A lot of people kind of get, messed up with that. So I'll say values, light and dark. How light, how dark. Intensity. So if we go back to the color orange, an intense orange is just basically out of the tube. Most all colors are at their most intense directly out of the tube. As soon as you start mixing other colors into them, that color is losing its intensity. So if we think of an orange dominant painting, you know, a sunset or a beach scene or whatever else, then in, you know, the intensity, maybe there's a couple areas of high intensity orange, but mostly they're, you know, being either lightened or darkened or grayed down. And they can be grayed down by doing what color would you use to gray down orange if we think of the color wheel?
Blue.
Blue, very good. So we're thinking directly across the color wheel. So you can very much neutralize orange with blue, or inversely, you can neutralize blue with orange. So if you are a fan of color and you want to use the most toxic of all colors, in my opinion, which is phthalo blue, I suggest you probably have orange on your palette as well, because those two work well together. They're like, it's like the crazy baby and the babysitter. It can really calm it down a little bit.
Who was the other artist beside Deborah Paris that you just named?
Stapleton Kearns.
Stapleton Kearns, okay.
Yeah, and I don't know too much about him. I used to subscribe to his blog long ago. He was one of the early art bloggers, and he's definitely a smart fellow and pretty funny. He always, or at least he used to always, just his first picture was always just a picture of a baby animal. For whatever reason, he just thought that was funny. So it would be like Tonalism and a baby goat would be like the title of his blog post. Edges and kittens.
They're soft.
Yeah, maybe that's how he was picking his animals. I'm still looking for good, the longer form description of tonalism. And maybe, all right, if you're willing to let me read for a minute. This is by a up-and-comer tonalist named Justin T. Worrell, W-O-R-R-E-L-L. He is very much a Dennis Sheehan fan. And I know some of you guys are, maybe from before, maybe from this class. But he does very much that kind of dark ground with interesting skies. So here's what he writes. Historically, tonalism was a movement found in America generally from 1880 to 1920, relatively short-lived yet impactful in the traces of traces of tonalism can be found throughout most of the art movements of the 20th century. And today we are seeing a renewed interest with the founding of the American Tonalist Society in 2016, which I was honored to have been in a couple of their shows. As well as a strong showing online across various social media. There's actually a very active tonalism group on Facebook, and it's literally just called Tonalism. There's a lot of crap that gets put on there, a lot of not good paintings, but there's some really amazing painters that are on there and post from time to time. So if you're willing to wade through it, but it's also a nice place for you guys to share your beautiful work. Tonalism is a nuanced term, but I like to think of it, for simplicity's sake, as a coin with two sides. One side contains the technical aspect and the other the artistic expression. From a purely technical perspective, classic tonalism consists of the use of a very narrow value range, which we're going to discuss today. On a value scale of 1 to 10, the artist would choose 3 to 4 values to employ in the work. Usually from the middle of the scale, for example, the artist would select a value of 3 through 5, 4 through 6, or 5 through 7. Nothing too bright, nothing too dark. A sense of atmosphere and mood conveyed through the use of these and other technical devices is generally also typical of classic tonalism. That being said, what he just said about it all being in the mid value range, I find, you know, and the pictures I shared on the email show that there's a lot of high key, a lot of low key tonalism. And we're going to look through a number of painters because this doesn't only, and that's the cool thing about all the lessons that we've covered in this class, is they don't only pertain to tonalism, they pertain to all painting. All of the things we've discussed are useful in all of the paintings you guys are going to do. Because I know some of you are super into color, some of you are more muted in your color choices, some of you like bright and pure chroma, pure colors, you know, from the outside of the color wheel. Some of you like the browns and grays that exist more on the center. All right, so the other side of the coin is what interests me the most, the expression. And that's for me too. I like the poetic side of it more than, that's why I don't really care too much about the rules or anything else, Kate. It's more for me about the expressive poetic side that I'm drawn towards. But perhaps a better word would be philosophy. Tonalism is steeped in contemplation, self-reflection, and the development of a personal philosophy, likely for both the artist and the viewer. Think of Thoreau sitting at Walden Pond, contemplating the place we occupy in the world and how nature relates, a spiritual awakening. To me, tonalism is about melding the rational and the emotional, the temporal and eternal to arrive at a heightened state of spirituality. The coin has two sides, yet it is still just one singular piece of metal. How the depiction of a fictional scene of the natural world accomplishes this is quite remarkable and a testament to the power of art. Phew, that's pretty. He writes very nice and pretty. If I find a link to, there's the Tonalist Society has its own website, and they have a couple of different descriptions written by gallerists and different things on there. And you'll see that even they will bounce back and forth about what it actually means. So I like that. I like that meaning that it's kind of leaning towards one color, you know, and it's not like it's all brown or all green or all purple. You're always going to have some kind of a contrast, right? Like, yeah, so I often will paint, you know, if my painting is very cool, if you can kind of see a couple vineyard paintings that I'm working on back there, you can see this one here in the farthest back has very much a purple kind of a feeling to it, but it still has yellow, it still has some green, but the purple permeates mostly. The purple is what is affecting all of the other colors. Right? You guys able to see that okay?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's probably not a tonalist painting by any means, but you can see that I let color, you know, usually one or two colors kind of dominate.
Is that a big panel, Michael, or is that a?
Yeah, they're big wooden panels. Here's the one I was working on yesterday. You can see this is very much what we're going to be calling a low key painting, meaning it's quite dark. But by having so much dark, the sun becomes much more special. And then like the glowing leaves against the dark tree over on this side here. And then if we get even closer, hopefully you can see the tops of the vines catching the light there. So it's almost, you know, even the sky is really quite dark. And so I thought that out, okay, how if the sun is what's important and the tops of the vines and the couple leaves poking in, then I'm going to focus on the dark. It's probably 80–90% darker values, right? If I took a black and white, most of the sky is going to read quite dark with only the sun and the tops of those vines really reading as light. Whereas
Michael, what base color did you use on that panel? What's under that whole thing?
Bright pink.
bright pink?
Yeah, I actually went back, and it's hard to see here, but I actually wiped back some of the clouds because I wanted it to be 2 levels of sky, or actually 3 levels of sky. You got the blue gray at the top.
Mhm.
And then if you can kind of see the bright pinker clouds overlapping the blue gray, those are kind of wispier, airier clouds. And then we've got the kind of darker clouds, including the warmer red ones at the bottom
Forgive me.
that kind of come across. I just kind
Okay.
of wanted to see if I could do multiple layers of clouds versus what I typically do. Yeah, I got lots of examples. We'll get back to that.
Michael, can we get back to that painting for a minute?
The dark one here?
Yes. So did you say you wiped out those clouds so the pink came through?
Yeah.
Okay, because I've tried to lay it on top of my darker clouds, that pinkish color, and when I add
Or,
white,
the glare
it
coming
just
from the computer.
turns
Sorry.
ugly. So there's
Yeah.
probably, I don't, is there any way to get
Same.
that back without wiping it out?
Sure,
But
you
I'm-
can just paint it back over the top.
But when I add white to get that, it's not that transparent color again, but perhaps I'm just, looking at it too closely, the one I've been working on.
I'm sorry, I don't know actually who's talking right now.
Oh, it's Susan, I'm sorry.
Oh, hey, Susan, I didn't even know you were on there. For some reason, you're not showing up on my screen.
Oh, I've gone dark. I'm eating my breakfast, so.
Okay, good. Yeah, it takes practice, for sure. Also timing. And those pinks are not nearly as bright as I put them on there initially, and I didn't want them so bright because I wanted the top of the scene to be interesting, but not distracting from the focal point, which is the sun. And then I'm hoping, and then like the trail, I left it very much in dark, but I just wanted enough movement down there to keep our eye moving. I actually had it really dark, and then yesterday went back in and lit it up so that I could actually put in all the grapevines and, the posts and everything else. Because
Yeah.
otherwise it just felt like one great big dark area, which was my initial idea.
Was your red background a quinacridone or was it earth red?
Quinacridone.
Okay.
So how true does it look on your screen to what you're seeing on the actual canvas there?
Not very, and it's still wet, and especially the darks are wet.
Right. So what would you
they're super shaky.
what would you say is the big difference in looking at it in person versus?
Oh,
on the
it actually looks pretty good there.
Okay, so that one is more.
Yeah, when I was
reflective of
holding
what
it up
might-
close, the screen was actually reflecting back onto
Yeah.
it. On the other page, I have our Facebook page open, and it's big and white and a bright light. But yeah, that's not too far off there where it is.
And Michael, this is Deb. So your lower third is undertoned with the like purples, or?
Actually, yeah, I worked kind of from top down a little bit. I had sketched in the trees with acrylic paint so that I could paint the sky right across them and, still see them enough when I wanted to bring them back. And then the bottom third, yeah, you're right. I did Payne's gray and quinacridone red makes a very muted purple. And there's lots of it actually showing through in the painting. So I kind of went with a warm, where I knew there was going to be warmth, I left that really reddish or pinkish. And where it was going to be in the shadows, I went to my purples. And then that way I could allow some of that to show through and kind of harmonize. So I kind of, again, I don't know if that's really a tonalist painting, but I'll probably post it on the Tonalist site and let other people decide for me. And again, I just don't care too much. The one I showed you guys last week that I haven't worked on anymore just because I'm undecided of what to do. But you can see this one is very monochromatic. Oh, that glare is amazing. There we go. Very monochromatic, right? It's very earthy and yellowy, kind of orangey. It definitely leans towards a small area on the color wheel of the yellows and oranges. And then if you kind of brought that in towards the center of the color wheel, the grays and the blues, I mean, the grays and the browns. But it doesn't have any, really hardly any green. It just kind of looks like there's green on it by the reflection. Maybe if I stand back a little bit. So you can decide, you know, again, when we look at the paint, tonalist paintings, you're going to see so much. Like here's a new one I'm starting, and it's just very much just the block in of just some big tree shapes. But when I get going on this, it's going to be really, there's going to be some really bright fall foliage. This one's going to be less about design and more about these really warm grasses, and the shrubs over by the beaver pond near my house have turned just this bright red, and being top lit, they are just beautiful right now. And it was funny because I really couldn't figure out a great design for them. But for me, it was more about the colors and the contrast and the shapes. And, you know, it's got these greens, but they're very olivey. And so it's going to be very much fall colors, which is my favorite color palette anyways. So that's where I'm hoping that one will go. So lots of different ways of working, lots of different ways of building up our paintings. And in those first stages, when I'm kind of wiping away, or however I'm just building up my painting, I will be thinking high key painting, low key painting, mid value painting, or full value painting, right? Is it gonna have, now I need to go all the way back to the top, so bear with me. I'm gonna take us over to need to pin me somehow. Where's that at? Swear things move every week.
I know it does seem, yeah, I was able to pin you on my screen, which I've never been able to do before.
Oh, maybe that's what you guys need to do.
Yeah, I already did that. Then I don't show up when I talk.
Huh, well now, oh, yeah, it did show up when you talked for me, so that's interesting.
Oh, that is.
Yeah, I think it still shows up on the recorded one. There's something you have to do at your end for us to not show up. Plus, yeah.
All right,
Yeah, I'm seeing everyone who talks.
how about now?
What?
Well, we can try talking.
No, I'd only see you, Michael.
Woo!
I only see Michael.
All right, sorry
Yeah.
about that, but that's what we're gonna use. Let's go to share screen, and I'm gonna take you over to our Facebook page. All right, we should be seeing the Facebook page. Here is the email I sent out yesterday.
Mhm.
And on the email, I went ahead and attached these little black and white value bars. I don't know what they're really called, value range. And you know, they're used all the time by photographers. And I also do these a lot, or have these hanging around my studio a lot. So you see, let me just click on it there. Everybody sees the value range there. So most painters, especially in the beginning of our careers, will think full range. You know, we want the lightest lights possible, the darkest darks, and everything in between. But as we progress and as we begin to kind of ask better questions of our images, and then what we want to convey from our images, we may start to look towards the low range, like the darker version. You got a George Innes down here that kind of represents that, right? That's a very low value range. In a little while, we'll go over to Photoshop where I can basically go back and forth from black and white to color. And that's a great way to test it, is to see your values. Because a lot of times we have a hard time reading chroma or color for value. A lot of times we read like yellows as instinctually lighter, even though they're not always. And cool colors is instinctually darker, even though they don't have to be. So we'll see that. So low value range, a high key range is, so if we're looking at the top one right here, right, this is the 5, the middle. So a high key range would be 5 up to, or down, whatever, up to white, right? So we're just painting in this range. So if we look at this one by Thomas Wilmer Dewing, who I really enjoy looking at his work for, you know, how do you simplify and really make a poem out of a painting? It's fairly high key, right? There's no real darks in here. There's some areas that read as dark, and that's something I want you to keep in mind, is you don't have to have black or, you know, level 9 dark to make things read as dark, because it's always comparative, right? So as long as this is darker than this, her head is darker than her shoulders, it reads as a dark, even though if you look to the edge of the painting over here with the black, you can really see how much more range there is for darkness, right? And then we've got the mid value range, which is where a lot of beginning painters paint. It's a tough one for me. I generally kind of stay away from mid value range. I find it to be a little bit boring. But a lot of beginning painters, especially when they're just starting out painting outdoors, their paintings will end up very much in the mid-value range. But that's not to say that beautiful work cannot be created there. But a lot of times when people's paintings, when they ask me, you know, what's going on, it just doesn't feel right. It's boring. It's, you know, what's going on? And I'll just say, well, you don't have any lights and you don't have any darks. Everything's just kind of in the middle. And a lot of times that will feel very restful, very, just kind of think of an overcast day is usually kind of in the mid value range, unless the light's coming through that haze, then you can have a very high key day if it's foggy and everything else. Does that make sense, that description of value keys?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So today I'm going to do a demo for all 4 of those, probably using very similar kind of layout. And you can see really how different you can make them. So if you're looking at a photo that you took and you're, you know, and you look at the photo, maybe you turn it into a black and white and it has the full value range, that doesn't mean you need to paint it in the full value range. If you feel like, you know what, painting in the high value range might be more interesting, more subtle, more quiet, or you know what, I want the low value range. I want this to be have a little more drama, a little more melancholy to it. So anyways, and then as we look here, you know, it's got darks in it and it does have, you know, a light, but it's not, if we look across, letting our eyes bounce back and forth to the white or the dark, the black, you can really see that there's a lot of range that's not, you know, nothing in there is black. Nothing in there is dark, dark, dark. And even though he's got the sun poking up over the trees, it's obviously kind of overcast or hazy. It's soft, you know, it's a soft silhouette and it's just not as bright as this. If you would have made it white, white, white and super bright, it would just be a different image. It would be fine. Or if he would have went in and made some of the shadows in his trees, or maybe the shadows along the water here much darker, it could still totally work as a painting, but he decided to keep things in the mid values. All right. So I've asked you guys, as you're looking at other paintings and photographs, to begin to analyze, you know, what are the big shapes? where's the focal point? You know, what are the leading lines? And now I'm going to add this other element. As you're looking at photos, if it's on Instagram or Facebook or through magazines or art books, begin to ask yourself, is that a full value range, a low key range, high key range, or mid value? And again, it's not about all of it, because most paintings will have, you know, some darks and some lights, even if they're mid value range. But what is it predominantly? What is it 80%? What is it 90%? Is it, you know, a low key? Because I often will do low key paintings with a touch of light, just kind of like the vineyard one that we were just talking about there. It's very much a low value key range, low in the darks, right? But it does have a couple highlights, and that's my way of telling you that this is where I want you to look. That's the contrast, that's the interest. Okay. One other, this one is very, very high value or high key, right? I mean, there's no darks. Again, if we look to the black beside the painting, it's not nearly as dark as this, right? If you would have made these black, it'd still be a beautiful painting. It's got an interesting, strange design, but by leaving it very muted, sorry, my screen blacked out there. Yeah, and then even his whites aren't pure white. He doesn't have pure white anywhere on there. So his, if we were to look at the values next to that, like put a value scale over the top of it, I bet you it's all like in level 3, 4, 2, 3, 4 maybe. Doesn't have 1, and it doesn't really ever get very dark. All right, low key versus high key painting. And this is also borrowed from another instructor named Spencer Hallam, Hallam. I don't know anything about his work. He's actually an illustration instructor and does a lot about online digital painting. But I liked his description here. Low key versus high key painting. In order to create drama and a strong value structure for a painting, artists often choose to work in either a high or low key in which to compose their work. Thinking about a painting or drawing in this way helps to simplify value choices, emphasize areas of focus, and create a pleasing interaction of shapes when the painting is considered abstractly. In a high key painting, the majority of values are in the lighter than middle gray. Then dark accents are used to lead the eye around the important areas of the painting. High key paintings feel light and airy. In a low key painting, the majority of values are darker than middle gray. Light values are saved as accents to highlight the important elements in the painting. Low key paintings feel mysterious and contemplative. What would you say this painting is?
Mid.
Yeah, I would say mid to dark.
Really?
Yep. But probably more in the mid. The sky, you know, does get lighter, but nothing in it's very bright. Again, if you can let your eyes bounce back and forth between the white over here to the right of it and over back here, squint your eyes, and really it's never gets too bright. It feels bright because it's warmer, but it really is not very bright. Yeah, and they're hard to tell. Like if I convert this into a black and white, which we can do, then we may be able to see better and judge it better. So I'm gonna stop share and I'm gonna take you guys over to Photoshop. And let's see if I can find that painting really quickly.
Wow.
Where am I? What? Nope. Tonalism. All right. So there we go. Pulled it up onto Photoshop, make it fit onto the screen. And I'm going to go image, adjust, and desaturate. Isn't that amazing how not bright that sky is? Try and make up. Doesn't want to. Anyways, maybe if I just go up and down. I'm trying to make it so that the
3 and 4.
right.
Wow.
But it does have some maybe 8s or 9s, sorry, 8s in there. To
Yes,
lead,
for
to lead
sure.
the eye.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get this bar up here without all the extra stuff. Image, crop, view, extras.
I feel like the value scale should be reversed, just kind of like piano keys, you know, where the light one should be on the right and the dark on the left, personally.
All right. There we go.
Oh, no, that bothers me. Oh,
I want everybody to be happy.
we're all different. Oh,
Yeah, typically it goes from white to black, left to right. But yeah, let's take this. Unfortunately, I'm having a hard time making it so that I can just have it really closely up there. It always wants to have that little blue around it. But yeah, if we take it and put that white over the top, there's really none. And there's no black either. So I would say that we get really close to the level 9. But yeah, it's mostly level 8, level 7, level, now we're over on the other side to level 3, 4. And let's take it up to the sky. And it's right in between levels 2 and 3, basically, if I squint my eyes. So it basically is mid, meaning it doesn't have dark darks and light lights. Anyways, really interesting to think about that. And that's why I picked that image was, let's get rid of this one. So I grabbed a couple others really quickly so we can kind of do this test. So you guys can kind of see what I'm thinking about. This is a artist named Dan Schultz. I very much like his work. And he paints very much mid to high value range a lot. I don't think I hardly ever see dark darks in his paintings. They almost always have this kind of grayed feeling to them, right? Like those purples kind of dominate. There's greens are never so bright, but because they're near the purples, they feel bright. And then he's got his orange focal point here that really contrasts with the surrounding grays and greens and purples. So interesting. So what would you say? I kind of just gave away the answer, but what do you guys think if we were to kind of say roughly the value range here?
high key.
High key, yeah. High, I would say mid to high.
Yeah.
Let's do the desaturate. Isn't that wild? So he's very much a colorist because a lot of the information disappears, right? Like, so you can see how things are very separate with color, but not with values. Isn't that wild?
That is wild.
So that's how Monet painted as well. Monet did not rely on value contrast so much, and probably a lot of the Impressionists for that matter, they relied on chroma or color contrasts. So if you get a chance, actually load in some Monet paintings and do the same thing, turn them into value paintings or photos, black and whites, and you'll just see that so much of Monet's information just disappears. All right, so let's bring over our bar real quick.
What was that artist's name again?
His name is Dan, and his last name is Schultz, S-C-H-U-L-T-Z. No, just, yeah, T-Z. Yeah, no blacks, no, I mean, he doesn't even have any darks that are on level 8.
No.
Let's see if he has level 7 here. Yeah.
It's like 2 through 5 almost.
What's that?
Well, no, there is a little bit of, yeah.
A little bit, but I would definitely say that this painting pretty much exists in 2, 3, 4, and a little bit in 5. And then he's got a couple darks in 6, just at the base of some things, but not much. And it's only at the bottom of his painting, isn't it? So his painting definitely exists in this area here.
Very soft edges too, except for the figure.
Right?
Oh, wow, that's good.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
All right, so I wanted to grab, oops, sorry about that. Just get rid of that bar. I wanted to grab some high chroma images as well. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of the border on this. I unfortunately do not know the name of this artist.
Does high chroma mean very colorful?
Very colorful. The colors are much more almost out of the tube. They've not really been grayed down. So high chroma is just high color, bright, pure color. High chroma, pure color. They're synonymous, at least for me. But anyways, you can see the colors are very bright, but it's also fairly high, mid to high key, isn't it? There's no real darks in it. I bet you these reds at the top of the post, when I turn it into a black and white, I bet you they become some of the darkest darks in here. I could be wrong, but let's see what happens.
Or the windshield or the little thing at the bottom.
Yeah, let's see. Image, adjust. Oh, I'm on the black and white bar already. Image. Shift Control U. So yeah, no real darks. Again, let's bring this bar over the top.
Wow.
Oh, wow, yeah.
We've let this person, I don't know if it's a boy or a girl, letting the colors do the work. I think it's like here, it's got a little bit of the brights and kind of over to about here.
Is that a watercolor?
I believe it is, yep. So it barely counts as a painting, but
Yeah.
just kidding. Move that bar. So yeah, I thought, when you put it over here, I'm like, oh no, this big tree is darker than this. But look, when I bring it over to the top, it disappears. So that is the value there. And the value of the trunk, pretty much. The value of our tops of the red. Now it's even darker than those. So yeah, look at that is a very condensed value range, isn't it?
Yes.
But you wouldn't think it by looking at the high color contrast.
Yeah.
So you can get away with that. And I'm going to let you guys play with that if you want. You're free to use color in, this week's exercises, because this week's exercises are about the values. Or maybe you do a couple of small ones like I'm going to do. And you do, a monochromatic version of it and maybe a high chroma version of it and see what happens. But yeah, this is a very much a high key, our high value key, high key painting. But it's also very much very high chroma, very pure, bright colors. Right? Especially towards the top. In the bottom, you can see it's all shadows down here. The light's raking across it. So down in the bottom, they let the colors be much more muted blue grays. All right, let's go to the next one. This, funnily enough, is one of my favorite paintings. This is a painting I look at a lot. Anybody, can you guys even see what it is? That's
Yeah.
right.
House
in
in
the
concrete?
snow, isn't it?
Yep. A house in the snow or a barn in the snow.
Okay.
He's a Russian painter, and I've grabbed a couple of his paintings. He's
What's
not
his
for
name?
everybody, I admit, but he's one of my very favorite living artists, and his name is Bato, Bato. And he just kills me. And I don't love all of his work by any means, but I really would like to own one of his paintings at some point.
Kind of reminds me of Wolf Kahn.
Yes, yeah, there's a lot of similarities to Wolf Kahn, but his colors would generally be a little more muted. And my instinct would be to say this is kind of a high key painting, but there's no whites in here. So I'll be curious when we do our overlay. Let's guess. Let's see if we can guess the values this time before we turn it to black and white. Okay, so this is a great exercise actually, is learning to see colors as values, because it's really pretty tricky. So you got to squint your eyes at it. There's obviously no white anywhere, right? Even if we get up towards this really sunny little burst, there's no white.
3, 4, 5.
3, 4,
3
5.
through 6.
I'm looking at the darks now, kind of rolling it across. So I'm kind of comparing here, because that's pretty much this, and then this are our darkest darks. This is so small, I'm not going to barely count it, because again, I don't care if you have a couple dark highlights or light highlights. I don't know if low lights, I guess dark low lights, to add interest and a little bit of information. I'm looking at what is the painting predominantly.
3.
So yeah, what do you guys think? I'm going to put a little bit of 2 and go up to, what do we think about there?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to change it to black and white, adjust, desaturate. Now it really just disappears, doesn't it? I mean, without that little bit of orange over here, it is. Let's see, are we correct? Yeah, it's definitely kind of a level 2, level 3, kind of right in between those.
Mhm.
Most of the darks are level 4, and maybe a couple spots get up there, and then he has one darkish spot there, basically to kind of represent the edge of the barn and everything else. But isn't that fun?
How about the sun? What is the sun?
Probably right between these two.
Oh, gray. Wow.
Yeah, very muted.
It looks so bright in the color version.
Isn't that great? Yeah, it's because of the comparison between the purple and yellowy orange.
Yeah.
So the color contrast is doing the work again, just like in the previous painting. All right, so Bato. So I've grabbed a couple others. We can go through them a little bit faster. All right, this one also just blows my mind. Bato again. I just love his simplification, and where he just kind of just tells you the bare minimum sometimes, not all of his paintings, but I just find that to be so romantic and beautiful. It's like you're looking through a gossamer or, sheet, gossamer curtain or something, almost looking outside, or a couple screens, or you're not even looking at that, but that's what you're seeing out of the side of your vision almost, right? It's like you're focusing on the person you're talking to, but out of the side of your vision, that's kind of how that appears, or something like that. So this one's pretty obvious. It's very much what?
High key.
High key, yeah. All right, so I don't think we need to go through and hyper analyze all of them, but this is very much high key. It doesn't have anything, anything really bright white, so it's probably level 2. It's almost similar to the one we just looked at before with the snow, but isn't that funny that this one feels sunny and warm because of the contrast and strong edges? All right.
Yeah.
All right, Bato again, very much the impressionist. This also reminds me of a Gustav Klimt painting.
Yeah.
I would say that this one is more in the mid to dark. It does have some light brights, but I bet you when we change it over, like that white is definitely not as white as that. Why am I not? Oh, I need this, sorry. It definitely does not have any of the bright whites. Even up here, it's not nearly as bright as that. It's much closer to the level 2. Again, squinting our eyes helps us to see, or removing your glasses, depending on your supervision that you have. So, I mean, even these brights here, the warm of the trees, that's done more in color. I bet you when we convert this to black and white, that this cool gray versus this warmer yellow, I bet you it's done more in color than it is in chroma.
Yeah,
So very quickly,
3 to 4.
I think it's about here over to, I'm going to say about there.
Mhm. Yep. He always seems to have a couple of little spots, doesn't he? That's darker. That's interesting.
Yeah, and he's not afraid. So yeah, if we look at these leaves appear to come closer to us, being in the shadow and stuff like that. Let's do image, adjust, desaturate.
Do his paintings sell for a lot of money?
I believe they do now, yeah. He looks like quite the character. Why is it not turning to, oh, I need to be on the right level.
Yep.
So yeah, look at how close what the leaves and the background back there felt really different, because it was golden orange versus a very gray blue, but the values are actually really close. And that's what I mean, where it becomes really tricky for us to see the difference between values and colors.
Yeah, but that defies the rule that value does all the work. There, the color is doing the work.
Well, the values, yes, you're right in that instance, but yeah, you can still see the values doing a lot of the work in this. But you're right. But if I was doing this, as a black and white, I would hopefully be able to keep that in mind, put that in there, knowing that I'm going to come across it with the color, right? Yeah, you're right. That is a good point, and something to
It's almost a characteristic of tonalism in general, not always, but the fact that.
Yeah, because we're keeping it in a fairly monochromatic scene. Yeah.
So Michael, I have 2 questions. One, when paint comes out of the tube, where is the value, would you say? Can we say it's the mid value or the darkest of that color?
So they're all different. So that's
Oh.
a great exercise to do, actually. And give me 1 minute and I will grab me having done that exercise. And I actually don't have it out of the tube, but that's what I need to do next. Is I mixed up different colors. I mixed up, how many is it? 1, 2, 3, 6 different colors. And then I created a value key. So 5 different colors with the value key, light, to dark. And then I had to figure out where the color that I mixed was according to the values. Gail, did you do this one with me in Amy Erickson's class?
Michael, are you showing your palette? Because I'm
So-
not seeing it.
Oh, I'm so
Everybody,
sorry, you guys.
if you go up to the right corner, you can swap shared screen on
There
your
we
little
go.
icon.
So anyways, I picked, I painted these colors, and then I had to figure out, so I did the value key for myself. And then I mixed 6 different colors, and then I had to figure out where they were on the value key. So, and this one you can see is off. It's funny how it really stands out now compared to the other ones. They all go down the gradient. And then I went ahead and put the other colors on top of them too. So I just thought it made a really beautiful little scene. But what I guess I should show you here is that when we put out our yellow, it is automatically a higher value, meaning closer to white than blue. And manganese blue is going to be higher value than ultramarine blue. Cadmium red is actually quite dark compared to what it looks like, and that's where the brightness versus lightness gets in the way. And I often think of that kind of in the mid value. And then you've got your quinacridone red, which is going to be darker than your cadmium red. So that would be an amazing exercise. And maybe we should do that in our color class next. Oh, we need to talk about that too. I'm being asked to design my next class so they can start promoting it. Is everybody, I'm going to change it to group view really quick so we can just get this out of the way because I keep forgetting. And there's not too many of us, so we get to decide for everybody. You guys have a lot of power here. Your vote counts twice. I would like to do color class next, and I think that we can piggyback on this. We can even talk about different kind of tonalist palettes as well as getting to high chroma palettes. And again, I just love doing color in the winter. I don't know what it is, just that little break. Plus we get the beautiful fall colors if we get going in time. So, hey, Stacy, you get to vote too now. Everybody down for doing color?
Sounds good.
I know Kate and I think Gail and a couple of others, Lisa. I know Lisa, you were in there. Maybe Sully, were you in my last
Yep.
color class?
Yep, and I,
So I bet about half of you. Are you guys willing to play some more with color, learn some more, and I'll try to change things up. And as always, we never stop learning. I mean, I'm learning
That's right.
from teaching this class, I'm learning from every time I do the color class. And what I do is just ask you to push yourself a little bit further with it.
It's good.
Hey, Michael, what would the dates be for this class?
I will have to get back to you on that. It would be probably not till after New Year's is that right, Gail, when the winter term starts?
It'll be
We'll have
probably the first week in January, I think is when they're scheduled.
Yeah, we'll have a long break. So maybe we could think about doing a short 1 or 2 week class, but actually I've got enough stuff going on. It might be a good idea. I just picked up a couple more commissions. Might
Michael,
be a good idea for me to wait until after New Year's. Yeah.
Michael, one of the possibilities might be just a one-day workshop
Yeah. And I know that,
period of time. I don't know if everybody would be interested or not, but we are doing a lot of one-day workshops, so watch for them in lots of different kinds of.
yeah, I know Laura's not there right now, but I know she was asking about a workshop, and a one day we can cover a lot. So yeah, I will.
I want the 1 day workshop or the 2 day workshop at Manuka.
That one, I'm in talks with them right now, and that won't be until next spring. But yeah, everybody needs to take that. It is so awesome out there. Oh my gosh. As soon as I got there, I was like, I can't wait to come back. So beautiful, and it's so relaxing, and the building
We
is-
have to come back when the pool is open.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. I saw that they actually opened it this year.
Where is that, Michael?
It's in the gorge.
Oh, yeah,
It
yeah, yeah.
literally looks out over the Vista House. It's right next to the Women's Forum.
Nice.
Yeah, it is just beautiful. So anyways, all right, so color it is. Thank you. That made that easy. You guys are fantastic. Going back to Spotlight. Oh, I guess I am still on Spotlight. Guess I'm just changing my view. All right, back to share, and we'll start going a little faster through these images, okay? Share screen, back to Photoshop. And let me know if you guys are getting bored of this or you're like, okay, we get it, a little overkill. Back to Photoshop, everybody sees it?
Yes.
All right, so get rid of that, bring this up. This is an Amy Erickson painting. She's an instructor at OSA every once in a while. She's a really interesting painter. This is a tough one, right? Because you got these dark figures and then you have this very kind of washed out area. If I bring this down, I can't really, well, I can blow it up, but it's going to get very pixelized. So sorry about that. Oh, wrong one.
Beautiful painting.
She's so good at this. Yeah, very pixelized. Sorry, I couldn't find a
Yeah, that looks pretty much full value range, doesn't it? But it's not.
No,
It's
I would-
close
I would-
though. Yeah, it's a
Close.
pretty close full value range. Your darks
Mm,
probably level 9, you know, and even darker. And then her highlights, they really do get bright. So let's go ahead and get rid of that one and let's bring up this one of hers. Isn't that interesting how bright and
Wow.
warm that feels,
Mm,
right? But it's really actually quite dark. It's very much a low value range. So it doesn't have here, it doesn't have here. It's level 3
mhm.
because our lightest lights are in that yellow there. Level 3, so I'm just gonna go ahead and grab it. And then bring it down to our darks, and let's ignore the figures because figures are accents here. So if we're just looking at the background, the sky and the water, how dark do you think it gets to? Let's right about here or maybe here.
I don't know, the value range is so big, I can't see.
Yeah, let's make that a little smaller. Thank you.
I think 6.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Let's go 3 through 6 and see how that works out. 3, 4, 5, 6. I bet you're about right. Yep. View fit on screen, make her bigger. But isn't that wild? I mean, it's almost like so bright you can't look at it. It just feels like, you mean, we've all seen that kind of weather, you know, in California or Florida or, you know, even the Oregon coast, if the light's refracting just right. Did the screen just turn black for you for a second?
No,
All right, my wiring in the back is getting a little bit loose and I can't tighten it anymore. It's old monitor, so it kind of blinks in and out on me every once in a while. I think it's slowly going out. And I was gonna do image, desaturate. And so look at that. Now it's just totally different painting, right? I mean, all of a sudden I could just change this value. Let's do it real quick. Image, adjust, color balance. I'm going to make it go towards blues. Isn't that interesting? Totally different painting.
Huh.
I'll just have to write Amy or call Amy and let her know I fixed it for her. Just kidding.
she'll appreciate it.
Yeah. So, wow, I grabbed a little bit of that whiter number 2, and I don't even think that's in there.
No, it isn't.
Mm-mm.
So let's get rid of that guy.
It looks like it could be a little bit darker too than your 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Much
you're
darker.
right.
6, darker than 6.
Oops, okay. Thought that might happen. But anyways, yeah, you can see I was off. So
mhm.
I'm not going to go back just because I want to keep moving forward. Another Amy Erickson. This one I would say is very much in the mid values, right? Mid darks.
Mhm.
Let's just do a quick desaturate. We won't break it down. Very much a tonalist painting though, isn't it? Beautiful.
So have you seen her paintings in person?
Yeah, actually I paint with her quite a bit.
And does she use a lot of paint?
She sure does. She's always making fun of me for not using paint. She's like, that would be good if you used paint. Yeah, she and I, when I go back, actually, we've done 4 or 5 paintings together, actually. And I've got them here in the studio right now. So anyways, yeah, you can see that the value range is, you know, nothing's too bright, I mean, maybe towards 2 or 3, and really nothing's too dark, just a couple little spotches. Yeah, she's so smart with her color, but yeah, look at that. It's got purpley grays and she's Venetian reds. And I would say, yeah, it just holds together, even though there's still purple, red, yellow, right? It's all there.
It seems like well, all those colors are very low chroma, but together they make such a glow.
Yeah, she's so good at it. Oh my God, she kills me. But you're right, very low chroma. So you guys think about that. If we're looking at the color wheel, all these colors exist within the middle of the color wheel. None of these colors are on the outside. None of them are pure colors. None of them are pure chroma. So she's graying them and browning them all down. Here's another one that I just love of hers. I would say that this is very much a dark or low key painting while retaining the lights to let it be more special, right?
Right.
It's 70 to 80% low value key. Isn't that wild?
Mhm.
Okay, but you know, when you desaturate a painting and all the yellow turns dark,
Yeah.
that's not the way the brain sees it. The brain turns yellow white. So when we look at that, we see we see the yellow, but it strikes our brain as really light. And I learned this a few years ago when I was drawing, and you can do a yellow under drawing, you know, and I was using oil pastels, and you sketch it out in a bright yellow, and then you put your actual colors over it. And even if the lines that you put on there in yellow, the brain doesn't even see those, but the camera does. It's so freaking annoying. You can't photograph those drawings.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so wild. But they're not, it's just wild to me.
That's amazing.
Because if you squint at the color version, the yellow just turns so light.
Yeah. If you squint your eyes, I would have guessed that this was going to be a lot lighter in here, the orangey yellow backlit foliage. So I'm surprised it went as dark as it did.
Well, that's just a difference between our brains and digital cameras.
Yes, very good point. So let's see if I bring up the brightness on it. When does it start to get lighter? Right, so now I've turned it into a mid-key painting, and now I've turned it up to a pretty much a high-key painting.
Really loses the drama.
Sure does. All right, this is another one of Amy's. This is one I actually painted with her and Scott Gallatley together. We just went up on a hill and painted. And I was just kind of impressed with how, again, just looking at all the colors that she uses, but they're all pretty much muted down. Even her reds are quite gray down. What do you guys think of this one? High key, mid key, low key?
Mid key?
Yeah, kind of between high and mid.
I would say high key.
I'm thinking mid to high, yeah.
Although there's
that's
no
very
white.
Interesting, though.
Well, close.
2 to 5, 6, 2 to 6, 2 to 7.
So definitely I could have gotten darker towards the bottom. Oh, I keep forgetting what I'm doing. Could have definitely gotten darker, so I should have reached out a little further. And there's not really anything almost as light as that. Almost. So yeah, very limited. You know, again, it could get a little darker, or I could just say those are kind of low lights, you know, kind of to make it special and to bring that area forward towards the viewer. But yeah. All right, that was probably overkill of a lesson there, but
Michael, will you be putting those pictures on the media?
I can, yeah.
That'd be great. And that last one, was that Erickson again?
Yeah, that was Amy Erickson again.
Mhm.
Like here's a photo that I took of a foggy day with a little surfer walking on the beach. This is Indian Beach near Cannon Beach. And you know, I really like these kind of tonalist photos that I take from time to time. Here's another one. This is a reference that we have, you know, and it definitely has the highlights and things in it, but it's primarily a low key painting. It's mostly in the darks. If we look at a painting that's kind of using that same techniques, not one of mine. And then here, look at this. It's just another photo. It's on our references. But yeah, it's pretty much a low key painting. Quite dark. And then you just have a little bit of light to make it special. So anyways, something to think about going forward.
Are those ones also, that one, they're gonna be in the media?
This surfer guy,
Yeah,
I can try to remember to.
thanks.
Yeah, I'll just leave it up here. All right, let's do stop share. All right, question time. For one, we need a little break. For two, do you guys want to do critique time feedback now? Would you guys like feedback from last week, or would you like to get up and start doing a demo painting?
Let's do the demos and
Let's
then
do
do the
demo.
critiques at the end.
Demo.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the video now as I get up there, and we're going to take a 10-minute break. So at 10:20, I will be at the easel, and we're going to do a demo of all the 4 different values of full value, mid, high, and low key. All right, so stop video.